within and find our intention. What brought you here? Why are you here today? So we're going to have Jim noodling underneath. We're going to go into that space. Gently floating your eyes open, coming back into this room, coming back into this space. We get to share our intentions with each other and let us know why you're here. What came up for me was the same exact thing this evening as it was when I found Seaside for the first time. And that's truth. So you don't have to be shy. You can just yell it out, and I can hear you. Joy! Share my joy. Peace. Freedom. Love. Service. Prayer and healing. Well, it seems like we all came to the right place this evening. And for all those intentions said and unsaid, together we say, and so it is. Okay, so I'm just going to leave this here because it doesn't work. This evening we have a wonderful speaker. She has, if it weren't for her, we wouldn't have a power-up service. She is a ministerial student. She is graduating this June, and she was brought up in this teaching. So she knows about a little something about science of mind, the philosophy, and intention. So help me give her a warm welcoming to Miss Kimjera Whittington.
Thank you. Thank you. I love when we set our intentions. That's like one of my favorite parts because I get to hear kind of what's been bubbling up for each of you and what brought you here, which I think is amazing after service when you kind of get to see what were the little nuggets that you took from it that really supported you in that. So last week when I was here, we had a really powerful service, I thought, and we talked a lot about inner peace and what it means to really go within and to find that like calmness in the center of all that's happening and recognize that in those blissful moments we are in peace. Today, what I want to do is take us into talking a little bit about some joy. How does that sound? Yeah, so what calls us forth in finding that happiness and that excitement in our lives and creating the life that we ultimately want, but through understanding that we have this birthright to having joy in our lives, to having an experience of happiness in our lives. I think often we forget that it is part of spirit, it is God in action when we get to say, look, I am happy, and I deserve to be happy, and all of the good that is provided to me is exactly what is intended. It is God in action. So when I was doing this, I was researching a little bit about the new psychology called positive psychology. There's actually a method to study now in universities this concept of what does it mean to have happiness. And what they determined, which I thought was fascinating, is this. 50% of all of us come into this world with 50% of our happiness. And they call it the happiness quotient. And that is genetically prone. So 50% of all of our happiness that we show up with in this world is genetics. Who knew, right? I didn't know that. 10% of our happiness is actually based upon circumstances. So what happens in your life, whether something, good happens or something that you perceive as less than positive, 10% of our overall happiness comes from circumstances. I don't know about you, but I thought that number would be much higher. Any other people? Like 10% seems a little low, right? I think so often I get caught up in, well, my happiness really has to be based upon everything that's outwardly happening. But the truth is, what is happening in our circumstances, whether we're getting something super amazing happen, like we get the house of our dreams, we go and we find that house and we get it, and it's right in the mountains on the lake with the boat dock, or for me it would be on the beach overlooking the ocean. Whatever it is for you, that's the house that you get, right? And you think to yourself, this is going to make me happy for the rest of my life. Have anybody ever said those kinds of comments? Like, that's all I need. I will be happy for the rest of my life. So what is determined is that actually isn't the case, because it only affects you for a short period of time. There's actually a gentleman by the name of Daniel, I want to say his last name correctly, Gilbert. And he is the author of Stumbling on Happiness. And what he actually determined in his book and through all of his research is that whether you're really high, or let's say you lose a job and you think, that's it, I'm done. Like, I'm devastated. And you think you're going to be down in the dumps for an extremely long period of time. The truth is, neither extreme is real. Neither extreme is really where you live. You actually don't live on the high or the low, because it only affects about 10% of your happiness. So what Daniel determined was that you actually go back to your set point relatively quickly. And that's kind of the key, is how quickly do we go from adversity back to our set point. And I consider that set point your 50% of your happiness level, right? That's what you're genetically prone to. Now, for some of us, that 50%, we're all in different levels. So I'm not going to say like my set point is exactly the same as your set point, or your set point, or even anybody online, your set point. What we come into this world with is strictly based upon us. So that's why you might meet certain people and you're like, you're kind of a glass half full person. Like, every time I talk to you, you're happy, you're just feeling it, it seems like, doesn't matter what is said, you're looking at the positive side. And then you do have some people in your life that maybe are a little bit more of a glass half empty person, where they're always just kind of looking a little bit more skeptical, not saying that they're unhappy, but they're just a little more skeptical. And so they're not necessarily always looking for the super positive side of things. So their set point might be at a different place, but that's okay. That's where we are, and there's no judgment about that. That's all genetics. But what's interesting is, if you do the math, we have our 50%, we have our 10% of circumstances, what's left is 40%. They say 40% of our happiness is actually based upon what we do to make ourselves happy. Any ahas? Like, I can affect 40% of my happiness quotient. I can determine for myself if, when I'm going through different paths of my life, I can set an intention and intentionally move through life to create the life that I want. And that's a significant part. If 50% is genetics and 40% I have control over, I'll take those odds any day, right? I have, like, literally, right? So what I want to do is tell you a little story. The story is called The Sack, and it's kind of a little metaphor, and it's about a little boy named Mullah. And Mullah is cruising down a path, and as he's walking down this path, he runs across a gentleman, and the gentleman is very, very just unhappy, just sad, just unhappy. And he has this sack in front of him, and he's holding this sack, and he's just sad, and he's saying, everything I own in the entire world is in this sack. That's it. This is all of me. This is everything I own. And he doesn't feel like his life is very fulfilled, and he's sad. And Mullah, gets this bright idea, and he's kind of a playful little guy, and he takes a look at the sack, and he goes, too bad, and he takes the sack, and he runs away with it. The man is devastated. He falls to his knees. He's crying. I mean, he is more sad than Mullah even thought he could have been, because he already thought he was sad when he ran into him to begin with. The man finally picks himself up, and he's like, okay, I have to move on. He starts walking down the path. Well, Mullah ran around a different way. He drops the sack back on the road, a ways up, and as the man is cruising along the path, Mullah goes and hides in the bushes, and the man comes across the sack. And he instantly gets elated, and he picks up the sack, and he's like, I'm so happy. I have everything. This is what I've wanted. Are you guys getting the metaphor here? It's the high and the low based on circumstances, right? So Mullah's watching this, and he looks from the side, and he thinks to himself, well, that's one way to make somebody happy, right? Let's take their only things that they care about, take it away, and then give it back. But that's how crazy we can be. We're like yo-yos. Our circumstances are what we think determines who and what we are. We are literally living our lives based upon the things that are amazing that happen to us. We get great news, right? We get told that we're getting a promotion at work, whatever that might be, and we are elated, right? Or the opposite. We get told that we have a disease of some sort, and we are depressed. But what's interesting is we really don't want to live on either extreme. We really want to try and get ourselves back to where we can intentionally create our happiness and not be dependent on either extreme. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, I'll take the high extreme. That one's okay. I don't want the low extreme, right? I don't want the yucky stuff to happen. But even in the high, if we think about it, we don't want to live there too long. And that's why Daniel tells us that we really don't. We usually go back. We think that we're going to stay in the high for a very long time, but we don't. And the reason we don't is because if we did, what do people do when they're really, really, really overextended in joy and it's not maybe authentic? They make poor decisions sometimes. They live from a place of ego. They come from a different part of themselves because they're not being authentic. So we really don't want either extreme. We want to find that middle ground. What's interesting is that Ernest Holmes in the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes being the founder of Science of Mind, in this philosophy we learn that we can experience as much joy and bliss in our lives so long as what we experience or how we are creating that does not interfere with anybody else's good. Okay, so what does that actually mean? Like, what does that mean? So I can have what I want, I can be happy about it, but it's so long as I don't interfere with anybody else's good. And this is his quote that I want to read. He says, "There's nothing in the universal order that denies the individual's good or self-expression, so long as such self-expression does not contradict the general good, does not contradict goodness itself. There's nothing in the universe that denies us the right to be happy, if our happiness does not deny or interfere with the general good." Okay, again, so I read through this, meditated on it. What does that mean? Like, what is Ernest trying to tell us? And I think what he's trying to tell us is God is here always for us, and that God wants nothing but everything we can possibly dream up for ourselves. The universe is infinite. So there is no small ask, large ask. It doesn't know the difference, right? It is infinite. And so it wants us to have everything that we want. But the trick is it all comes down to our intentions. Is our intention pure? So let me give you an example of that. I'm sure we've all come into those situations where you're hanging out with a friend and the friend is sharing something really amazing that happened to them. Let's go back to that promotion. They're getting that promotion at work and they're super excited and you work with them and you are going for the same promotion. They can say in pure joy and just express pure excitement if their intention is pure. If there's nothing behind it. But if they're kind of doing that, yeah, and I got the promotion, and sorry, you didn't get the promotion, but I got the promotion. If they're doing that where they're kind of making you less than, they're trying to lift their ego up, and it can be a subconscious intention even. Then that is what God universe is trying to express to us. That's where we get into trouble. As long as our intention is pure and we're coming from this pure place of love and we're just coming from joy and excitement, all is well. That's how it works. In the other situation, I think that's when we see the law of cause and effect come into play, right? Because how we're acting ultimately will create another reaction in the universe. But if our intention's pure, we want joy. We want to experience as much happiness as we possibly can. So I look at my life and I think, what does living from this place really look like? Like, how would I show up in this world if I was living from a place of pure intention? And I think we should all ask ourselves that question. And if I was living from that way, what would my ideal happiness be? Well, going back to that set point and the positive psychology, it really comes down to creating something for yourself that maybe is as simple as you go to a restaurant and you order something different. Just order something different. That actually is that 40% of creating your happiness, because there's something that happens in your brain. Again, what happens is, and I guess what's interesting is your body is actually involved in this process. You have a physiological response to happiness. And what happens is dopamine gets released and your neurotransmitters start going. And as that happens, there's a physiological response. So then when we're creating this idea of what we want in our lives and to create that more excitement and more joy, we do it through this response in our body. Well, how do we get that response? Well, we go to a restaurant and we eat something different, or even better yet, we pick a different restaurant than we've never picked. We might go on a walk and we take a different path. Well, what does that mean? I mean, my brain says, well, what is that going to do? I'm still out in nature. I'm still loving it. But maybe I see something new that I might not have seen before. I see a house that I think is just beautiful because they have a gorgeous garden, and I just love the flowers in it. And so that brings me a sense of joy in that moment. It's nothing that you really pinpoint. It's not like you go out on the walk and say, I'm going to see some really awesome flowers on this walk, and that's going to create more happiness for me. No, it doesn't happen like that. It just happens. You drive down the road and you drive a different way than you ever have, and suddenly you notice, wow, this was a faster route. I can actually cut off 30 seconds of my drive home. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that could be joy when you're trying to get home to watch your favorite TV show, right? That can create that little bit of happiness. I find a new ice cream shop. That's my weakness. My husband always jokes with me because he says, I know lots of different cities, and he says, I know them by the ice cream shops. Like, I literally will be like, oh yeah, there's a Dairy Queen on that corner. I know exactly where that is. And he's like, how do you know that? Oh, I know that. Or there's a Yogurt Land. Like, I'm very aware of where all the ice cream places are. But again, like for me, that would be joy. If I went down a new street and all of a sudden found a new store of some sort, I'd be excited about that. Oh, I got to check that out. That's really awesome. just doing something different can create this energy inside and this ultimate feeling of joy. For me, I love to travel. Traveling really fills me up. I consider myself a wanderlust. Any other wanderlusts in here? Yeah, it's a little term used for those of us that like to search out online lots of fun. Yeah, you know the one, yeah. Likes to search out fun places to go. I've even been known to book trips and then cancel them quite often. I do. I know, it's a problem. It really is. You should see my travel inbox. It's like booked, book, cancel, book, cancel. But I get all excited and I'm like, oh my God, I'm totally gonna go there. That's gonna be so much fun. And then I realize, oh yeah, those dates don't work. But in the moment, I was really excited about it. But that brings me joy. My husband asked me why the heck I do that. And I'm like, I can't explain it. But I know that when I'm just hanging out and relaxing, I have pure bliss, like searching out these random places that I really want to visit. And it gets me excited and it makes me feel like there's possibility in the world that I can get to. I love going to new restaurants. That's one of my big things. I love to sit and to socialize with different people. And there's something for me, when I look at my life, there's something about sitting across from somebody and being able to actually have a communication and look someone in the eye and not be worried about running up to the counter at the fast food places, but just sitting. That I find a lot of joy in that. Sounds odd, but I doing this talk really made me think, where do I find it? I think also for a lot of us, we can find it in stuff. Do I have anybody in the audience, any stuff people out here? A lot of material stuff, yeah. I am too. I tend to do it. I will buy stuff and then I'm like, why did I buy that? It didn't make me any happier than before I bought it, but when I saw it, I thought it was gonna bring me a whole heck of a lot of joy, right? But that's okay. I think as I've gotten older, I've learned that I probably will, for me, find even more joy in letting go of stuff as I'm getting older. That whole concept and that whole movement of minimalism, of just really living on less, excites me. Now, I'm not there yet. I will own that. No, I haven't downsized the house yet or anything like that. But I am making good decisions now because I'm realizing that surrendering the material possessions and not creating more of them actually, for me, gives me more time to do the things I want. Because think about it, when we have a lot of material possessions, what do we want to do? Well, we want to make sure they're not broken, right? And then if they break, then there's one of those circumstances that we get sad about. Or we have to then insure them. And we have to make sure we don't lose our job because we've got to take care of them, right? So there's a lot of pressure in my mind that comes from having a lot of material possessions. Now, again, I can't say that I freed myself from that, but I do talk with my husband quite a bit about our next move when the kids go to college, which is happening very soon, and how I want to downsize. How I want to move to something smaller and just let go of stuff. Because again, there's a sense of freedom that comes from that, at least for me. Now, you could be in the opposite. You could be like, no, being able to go and buy that, that amazing pair of shoes or that, awesome shirt, really fills you up. That's great. If that's something that brings you joy, then that's wonderful. It just all depends on you figuring out internally, where does that excitement come from for you? And again, think small. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be as simple as going on a walk, being in nature, doing, I know I have a lot of friends that love to do yoga. I love to do Pilates. When I get my 1 hour to go do Pilates, I have a lot of joy in that. I work very hard during that hour. I'm very tired by the end of it, but I find so much joy in it because I feel like I got to give a little bit to myself. And so that brought me some joy. I think taking a look for us at, how do we see life? Do we see it, going back to the very beginning, do we see it through a lens of half empty or do we see it through a lens of half full? No judgment on either side, But recognizing where you are and how you see things can be very, very positive in understanding what brings you joy. See, if you don't even know where your set point is, you don't even understand your own dynamic, then it's very hard to determine, okay, is this just me? Or is this an actual circumstance? Or what can I do actually to be part of that 40% to create the change? That's where you want to get to, is where you're actually thinking about it. So in Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes would tell you, it's all just about the contemplation. It's about the thinking about it. It's about having an awareness to it and an understanding of where you are and what you're here to do. And when you do that, then that's where the magic happens. Because if we're running through our lives at a place of a good analogy just came to me. So you're in your car and you've turned your lights off and it's nighttime. You can't really see ahead of you, right? So you're not really driving very effectively. Most likely you're going to slow down. You're going to drive very, very slow because you're scared, right? You don't have your lights on, so you're not quite sure you're going to hit something or you're not going to hit something. Should you turn left? Should you turn right? So I think, really knowing where you are and how you take in joy and happiness and where in your lives you can affect it is really just driving your car with your lights on and being able to see ahead of yourself and create that path. So what I'd like to leave you with today is just to really think about for yourself, what's in your sack? That's a big question. Because we all have one, right? We all are carrying stuff around. We're all holding on to it. What is it for you? Is it a sack filled with relationships? I don't know. Are they positive? Are they not? Like, what if you lost the sack and your sack was filled with, that was what brought you the most joy, was your relationships, and what if you lost it? What would you do? Those are questions to think about. Is your sack filled with material possessions? Is that what you most value and what is your entire world? And if suddenly something happened to that, somebody, came and took it from you, what would that feel like to you? Is your sack filled with really wonderful things like personal peace or personal time? Like, is your sack filled? Do you cherish your time? That's something different to contemplate. And I think in that sense, again, if something happened to it, you might not be as sad. I don't know. I think it really just depends on taking a few minutes to think, if I have these things, is that truly making it that much better for my life? And if I didn't have them, what would that mean? And could I replace certain things? Or do I need it at all? I guess that's an even bigger question. Do I need it at all? Because if you said, you know what? If it was gone tomorrow, I'd be just fine. I really would. I might, again, 10% circumstances, I might be sad for a little while, but I would bounce right back and I'd be okay and pick myself up and move on. Then I think that's a pretty balanced life. And that's what we really want to get to, is just really being balanced in what we believe and how we're living our life. And if there's something that I could replace because maybe there's something that I want to add to it or something I want to take out of it or just something I want to minimize in it, make smaller, that's okay too. It's just taking a look at that for yourself. So that's the question I'd like to leave you with this week. Contemplate that, and hopefully next week when you come back, you'll get some good energy throughout the week of figuring it out. And lastly, I want you to come up with 5 things. It's not a big list. Just 5 things that you're going to do this week that is going to be part of that 40% of your intentionally creating additional happiness in your life. Just 5 things, and I want you to do them. So make them simple, make them doable, make them relatable for you. Don't have expectation of the outcome. Again, when you go on the walk, there's no expectation that you're going to find the beautiful flowers. You just might stumble upon them. You might not. You might not stumble upon anything, but you might just get 30 minutes of fresh air, and that's beautiful enough, right, to create a little bit of a rejuvenation in you when you come back. So 5 things. And with that, I would love to take us into prayer. So I know in this moment that God is right here, that this divine energy of love and kindness, of complete joy and blissful laughter is all the aspects of God. I claim in this moment that I am this beautiful divine expression, and Spirit is unfolding beautifully as each and every one of us. So in this moment right now, I know that we are moving through this life with joy, that we are claiming and taking back all that has been put in front of us, and we are setting our intention to actually purposefully create a more joyful life. I claim that it comes to us, these ideas, these thoughts, these expressions come to us this week with grace and ease, that there's no effort that needs to be done, that little bits and pieces of an experience show up and create that inner feeling of laughter and joy and happiness. I know in this moment that if there's any thoughts or feelings inside of less than joy or happiness or wholeness or perfection, I know that they come into this space and they get to be allowed to dissipate into the nothingness that it came from. For the truth about God is that there is plenty, that we all can claim our good, that we all have access to the good, and that I am this good. And so as I claim that for myself, I claim it for each and every one of us here, those that are listening and beyond. I know that in this moment that Spirit is pulling forth as such a beautiful light in our lives, expressing and creating and helping us move forward into the divine beings that we are, intentionally allowing us to set forth this new world. And so with this, I just release these words into the action of the law, knowing then such gratitude for this moment, for this teaching, for each of you that have come here, and gratitude for the message from Spirit that we all needed to hear and to take in tonight. And I just release it and let it go. And so it is. Thank you. So this is the time that I'm going to move right into. It's our question and answer time. And so what's great about the Power Up service is that we get an opportunity, which we don't normally get to do on a Sunday service, is you get to ask questions. And if there's anything that has come up for you throughout the talk or anything that you wanted to ask about, Kat has the mic, and we'd love to hear from you.
Don't all raise your hands at once. Can I get the clicker? Because look, we're up.
Yay, we're up.
Technology is working.
Yay.
Hallelujah. So you can go ahead, raise your hand. I walk over. If you have any questions. She said a lot of stuff. I'll let you marinate in a little bit. Okay? And marination is over. You can ask all the questions that came up for you.
We can talk after. So, no questions? We're good? All right.
Easy peasy.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to reintroduce Whitney back, and she is going to do another song for us. Woohoo!
Since we're talking about the sack of joy, we're going to do a song about choosing joy. When the walls come tumbling down, I choose joy. I choose joy. When the world stops spinning around, I choose joy. I choose joy. When my heart is hard to move, when my music's lost its groove, when I have too much to prove, I choose joy. Choose joy, yeah. When hate is all I see, I choose joy. I choose joy. When fear won't let me be, I choose joy. I choose joy. betrayal and lies. Hide the light from my eyes. I look up to the skies. I choose joy.
I choose joy.
Come on, Jim.
Joy.
Joy, 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 joy. I choose joy. Joy, 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 joy.
I choose joy.
In this moment right here, I choose joy.
I choose joy.
When I'm gonna run from fear, I choose joy.
I choose joy.
To be who I might be. Oh, see the light shine in me. When hope is gonna be free, I choose joy.
I choose joy.
Joy, 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 joy. I choose joy. Joy, 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 joy. I choose joy. Yeah. Come on, clap your hands, y'all.
Ah, thank you.
Yeah. Find the stable ground, peace and hope abound. I hear the sweeter sound, chains are all unbound. Love has come around, 'cause I choose joy. In this moment right here, I choose joy.
I choose joy.
To those who I hold dear, I choose joy.
I choose joy.
Oh, when temptation can be found and love is all round, when hope is just abound, I choose joy.
I choose joy.
I said, and everybody will be free when I choose joy. I choose joy. Oh.
Right on.
So much.
Yay, Whitney. Thank you, Whitney. Thank you, Terry.
Wow, that was awesome. I love it. And you got us all there, which is like, yay, which is great. So this is the time when I'm going to do just a quick power talk, and we usually just do a little bit of a different take on the same topic. So my idea today was to show you about an experiment, and I wanted to show you an actual video, but unfortunately the video's not working, so I'm going to kind of talk through what happened. But before I do it, I just want to share, one of the things that's so interesting about this whole concept is if we are truly stepping out of paying attention to the circumstances, then our emotions don't get to run us. And that's kind of the key behind it, and we don't want to let that happen. We want to keep control of our emotions. And so again, we always have the option to go either direction, right? One of the great experiments that happened was, and I want to say his name correctly, Masaru Emoto did an experiment, multiple experiments, and he's got multiple publications about it, and I think books about it, where he wanted to look at specifically what happens when we talk positively or negatively to water. And he did it with water, he's done it with rice, he's done it a few different ways. And what I wanted to show you was the video that we talked about a little, like right towards the end of last week, it's called What the Bleep. You guys seen that movie? So in there's just a little clip, and it's like 2.5 minutes about his experiments. And what it showed was that when they took a look at water and they froze it, and then they did different things. For example, right before they froze it, they talked to it very positively. What happened was the water, when they froze it and then took an image of it, looked absolutely beautiful. It was like the image of the molecule was a very symmetric, and it almost looked like a crystal. It was gorgeous. And it just showed how a simple molecule, and they have pictures of the molecule when you do nothing and then when you talk to it. Basically, in this one, they talked about love, and they gave it love and talked about it and said it was very loving and etc. And then it turned into this beautiful crystal. They also took the same water, and they said very negative things like, I hate you, you make me angry. They mentioned things like war, things that were very violent words. And then they took an image of the water, and the molecule turned very asymmetrical, and it turned like yellow. It was amazing to see. What was interesting about his work that he brings forth is that our bodies, and I don't know the exact percentage, but I want to say we're like 90% water. I mean, I'm probably off, but our bodies are mostly water. And what he was saying was, think about it. What we say, that's what's happening. And I want to take that back to spirit, because what we know in this teaching is that what we say out of our mouth is not necessarily to the other person. Spirit knows it as us saying it to us. Did you guys know that? That's amazing. And when I really learned that and really conceptualized that I might be angry at someone and they might be wrong, but if I am spewing anger at them, all that God is hearing is me spewing anger at myself, because we're all one. And so I'm taking that into my body. Again, if you look at his experiment and what actually happened and how those molecules changed, I can only imagine when we're not speaking in really loving and positive ways, what that does to us. But on reverse, when we're speaking from love and when we're coming from joy and happiness and we're sharing that with other people, again, what happens in reverse? Our bodies are manifesting these beautiful ways, and I think that that's a lot of what we don't understand about our bodies. A lot of times we think it's all physical. We think it's all on the material level of form. That's what I call the world, and what we talk about is this is material, it's form, right? But there's this creative being in us that is really not material at all. It is spiritual. It is a completely different plane of consciousness. And that's the level that we want to be speaking from. That's the level that we want to be affecting. So I wanted to leave you in this power talk to really take home this week as a final message, to think about how we're sharing our words and making sure that we're doing it in a way that is completely in alignment with how we want to treat ourselves. And ultimately, what do we want to project onto our own bodies, but to the world, so that we can create more joy in our lives? And so it is. All right. I think that we are now at the offering. And I will not forget the affirmation today. I forget the affirmation every week. I don't know why. It's like ingrained in my head. So I'd like to call our ushers forward. I know, it's crazy. This is the time of service when we get to give of our gifts. And I like to share a little bit, because to me, what is amazing about this spiritual teaching is that there is this law of circulation that takes place. It is a fundamental law about how what we put out into the world comes back to us. It may not come back financially. It may come back in a wonderful phone call from a friend that we didn't expect to hear from. Could come back with a loving, kind conversation with a family member that normally the conversations don't go that way. There's a circulation law. And so in this moment, I'm asking for you to share your financial gifts with Seaside, because we want to continue to do this work, not only supporting you, but supporting the community at large, and ultimately making a difference in the world. And so with that, if you can repeat with me the affirmation. This gift I give is God in action. I give it in joy. I give it in love. I give it in gratitude for all the good in my life, and so it is. Thank you.
I have to remember it. This gift I give is God in action. I give it in joy. I give it in love. I give it in gratitude for all the good in my life. And so it is.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim. So Jim Bianchi is our accompanist, and he's amazing.
Yes.
And he just debuted our affirmation song that he made. I asked him to do it last week, and he just showed up with it this week.
Yay!
Right?
That was beautiful.
Right? He's amazing. Well, he doesn't follow instructions. He was like, can I do this? And I was like, yeah, totally do it. I think it'd be awesome. So, testimonials. Last week, we had the wonderful Kimjera here, and she gave us a call to action that was to go out into a body of water. So we talked about blue and how blue has psychological effects for us in our brain, right? So, that was what it was, going out into a body of water, meditating, removing ourselves from whatever was happening, or just giving ourselves that space and time to be in a large body of water. So if anything came up for you during this talk or throughout the week or something that you want to share, this is the time. We do this so that we can communicate with each other. This is a community. We don't do it only for us. We do it for you. We do it especially for you, actually. So go ahead and raise your hand so that I can come down and give you the mic, because I love to talk to you, and I know you love to talk to me too. So I'll just talk a little bit. Actually, you know what happened? I was driving, so I got a little overwhelmed, right? So weird that I would do that. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go out for lunch. I'm gonna take myself out. And I forgot about your call to action, but as I was driving, I saw the ocean. And then I remembered that I came from the Bronx. There's no ocean view over there. So I am so lucky to be here, to be with you guys, to be at Seaside, to be in California. And that's what it brought me back to, that this is why I did it. And then this is where I landed. So my call to action, the call to action from Kimjera, which I did for my life, was to visit the body of water that I so craved when I was living on the East Coast. If you're watching, I still love New York City. I love you very, very much. It's just, there's more water over here. So that's what came up for me. That's what came up for me. Does anybody else want to share what came up for them this week? And if you're watching, go ahead and post it or like it, and I will get back to you later. All right, Dan.
What always makes me happy, and you said looking at the ocean, and sometimes living here, we just forget that it's there. But if you just go on Santa Fe and keep going under the freeway, keep going around that roundabout, and then up that hill, and then at the top, there's that amazing view. The ocean is forever, and it's out there. That always makes me happy. And thank you for reminding me.
Thank you. That's awesome. I did it this morning, too. I was like, I'm so tired. California trees. Wow. Does anybody else want to share? Going once. Going twice. That's all right, guys. I know. I'm intimidating. I kid. I couldn't if I tried. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us, for sharing this space, for listening to Kimjera's message. It does something for me to listen to you, but it does something else when I'm listening to her with you. So I want to thank you for being here and sharing your consciousness, sharing your laughs, sharing your stories, sharing your joy with us here at Seaside. I want to thank you if you're watching online for sharing your time and your consciousness. We feel you here too. And I want to thank Gregory for being behind the camera every Wednesday. Thank you so much, Gregory. We have Tim and Melanie, who made sure that everything was up and running for us this evening. Thank you so much. We have Ginny and Dennis, who are our ushers, and Ginny is our coordinator, who have been serving here for over 20 years. So thank you guys, wherever you are, they're in the building. Thank you, David, for coming all the way from Poway, holding the light, doing our invocation. You are a light here at Seaside. Thank you very much. Our accompanist here this evening, who is so wonderful, Jim Bianchi. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us this evening.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We have Whitney Shea, who's, very big out there, right? And she's here with us this evening, too. And, of course, this wouldn't be Power Up without Kimjera Whittington. So thank you, Kimjera, for sharing your light and sharing your words. So, now that I've thanked everybody, we have one more song with Whitney Shea.
I think you guys are going to know this one.
Yeah.
So sing along if you know it.
Ready?
Yeah. It might sound crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon, I can go to space. In the air like I don't care, baby, by the way. Here's why. Because I'm happy, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy, clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy, clap along if you know that that's what you want to do. Because I'm happy, clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Give it all you got, don't hold back. I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. Well, no offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy, clap along if you feel that happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy, clap along if you know that that's what you want to do. Because I'm happy, clap along if you feel that happiness is to you. Bring me down, can nothing bring me down. Love is too what? Bring me down, can nothing bring me down. Here's your part. Happy, 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 happy. I said because I'm happy, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy, clap along if you feel that happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy, clap along if you know that that's what you want to do. Because I'm happy, clap along if you know what happiness is to you. I said because I'm happy. Because I'm happy. I said, clap along if you know that that's what you want to do. Because I'm happy, clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Thanks, Seaside. Power up.
Yay, Whitney.
All right, so thank you so much this evening. We have cookies and tea in the family room, so you are all welcome to have a conversation. We'll see you there. Good night.
true.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much, Jim. I sent
yeah.
you an email. I connected you with Kenny.
Yeah.
Did you talk to her?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Well, you're
Yes.
on there.
All right.
All right. We set up the rest of March, and I will set you up for April, May, and June. Are there any conflicting dates?
I don't think there are. I'll check.
Okay. So I'm just gonna book you for those 3 months.
April, May, June.
Yeah.
Right on. All right.
Oh, and Whitney, I need your dates.
Yeah. I can email you today.
Yes.
You want? I'm going home. I gotta run home now because I can't hang out because I am getting new roommates, so I have to go meet one of them.
Yay.
Where are you moving to?
I'm not. My boyfriend and I broke up. I think I told you that before. So I'm getting new roommates at my place, which is cool. So I thought I had 2 lined up, and then yesterday one of them told me, she was like, "Oh, my job contract is gonna end in April. I just found out." She's living at home right now. She was living in Belgium.